Happy 2025! Thank you for being here. Thanks for tuning in. Hello, how are you? How are you doing? I'm Jess Betancourt, the host of the Mindful Drinking Movement podcast, and this episode today is particularly and specifically for people who are doing a dry or a dryish or a damp January, and it's not perfect. And I'm doing little air quotey perfect fingers because what really does that mean? Well, perfect dry January on paper might look like you went the full 31 days without having a sip of alcohol cross your lips. That would be like the ideal, the poster perfect dry January. But then what happens a lot of the time for people who do succeed in a paper perfect dry January is that February 1st they go buy a bottle and drink the whole thing and feel this sort of like release happening, or like they've held out so long and like now they can have it, or maybe even spending all of January looking forward to February 1st and kind of just bypassing the whole process to prove to oneself that they can do it. Um, this isn't everybody, right? Of course, there's so much nuance within how each person has their own dry, damp January experience. Um, I know like I'm hosting a dry January program right now currently, and people inside of my program are expressing that their dry January is not perfect, right? And I want to instill in you or offer you some sort of different perspective or way to reframe what having a dry January can mean for you. First of all, it's personal, right? This is not Weight Watchers. We're not like checking in and showing our numbers to other people and feeling this sense of like comparison or competitiveness. Let's do away with that. Psh, move that to the side. Dry January is personal. It's a space that someone creates when they make this decision that they're going to participate, that they get to experience their own growth, and they get to experience their own insights, and they get to experience their own urges and yearnings and the reasoning underneath the desire to drink. To me, that's really what it is about, is the learning and the unfolding and the journey that it takes you on, the inward introspective pathway that you get to walk when you create this space of intentionality of not engaging in automatic behavior with alcohol as far as possible. For me, dry January isn't about torturing myself or encouraging my clients or other people to torture yourself and don't drink no matter what and just follow through and stick to the plan and like then you've done it. I don't know what that does. I don't see the benefit of that. Um, and I believe that dry January serves a purpose that is greater than checking off all these boxes. If you do succeed through dry January and you do check all the boxes and like that serves you, that's wonderful. But I know for a lot of people that really doesn't do it for them. But what might do it for you, if you're not having a perfect on paper dry January, is to do some more introspection and to create some more space for self-reflection. And whether you make it 31 days or if you make it one day and you're not even used to having one day off, really try to find the the pros, right? Like the things that are going well, the ways that you are succeeding, even if they seem like they're really small. Like if you did one day so far, it's January 9th right now, but if you're listening to this sometime in the future at the end of January, and you attempted dry January and you got one day and you haven't had a dry day in months or years, or like you can't even remember, you need to acknowledge that. You need to acknowledge that. And that none of us are perfect and that none of us are doing things perfectly, um, and to give yourself some credit for even small shifts and changes. Because when you do that, and the more you do that, when you make that a habit and a practice to acknowledge where you are creating difference, even if it's slight and subtle, you're teaching your brain and you're teaching your mind that change is acceptable and exciting and that you're totally capable of it. And to me, that's what's more important. That's what's more important, right? Not drinking feels great, and that's important. That's important for your health and your well being and your physicalness and your emotional state and your mental health. Like removing alcohol is wonderful. And the more you can do it, the better you will feel. But if you're doing it in a way that feels like torture to you, maybe take a step back from just removing alcohol and play the inner game a little bit more and practice being with yourself more and asking yourself the deeper questions of what is it that you really want, or what is it that you're trying to get away from? What is it that you can do just even slightly differently today? How can you carve out and create some space and time to just connect with yourself? Just creating like this buffer of time, right? Like sitting with myself and having a regular meditation practice and being a hypnotherapist, but also using self hypnosis on myself and having sessions done is what has given me this ability to not drink at will, right? Just like being able to be with myself a little bit more and a little bit more and like expanding that out and diving deeper in, engaging more internally is what allows this external result. Like, I'll just say it, dry January for me is easy now, but that wasn't the case, right? I first attempted dry January in 2021, and I think I did like 2 days. And then like it was just all over. And I was like, oh, I did 2 days. It was like, but then the next year when I did it again, I invited other people to do it with me. And I think I did like half of January with scattered days. And like it's just progressively gotten easier. Um, and it's nice that we just have this kind of designated January, the first month of the calendar year, the Gregorian calendar year, to create this intention and to create this space, and that it's becoming more mainstream and that more people are engaging with it. I know a lot of people are making fun of it. I see that, and like a lot of people want nothing to do with it. But if you are in this space and you are engaging in some way, just know that it can be your own thing. It can be your own thing. It doesn't have to be or look like other people's dry January. It doesn't have to, it's not a cut and dried thing. It's a malleable, personal space for you to create time and intention to explore what's really going on with you. And what do you really, really want? What do you really, really need? What would actually just make your life better? How can you feel more connected to your spirit and to nature and to other people? And for me personally, removing alcohol and going without alcohol has allowed me to do those other things that I just mentioned. Because I believe, like, I don't speak of alcohol in negative terms really, even though I do believe that it is very harmful in large amounts and when used in an automatic and habitual way, yes, for sure. But what really has become more important to me is that when I take alcohol away, especially for longer periods of time, that I feel I have so much more access to my senses, to my body, to other people, to life. Because what alcohol really does, in my humble opinion, is that it creates this veil over us, this like barrier between us and divine source, the greater energy of life. It creates a block in how much we're able to experience ourselves, our creativity, our intuition, our potential. It slows everything down and stunts and blunts it. That's how I feel when I really think about like what alcohol does to me energetically, or does to a person, to a human, is that it cuts us off and it isolates us. It also, I feel like it really feeds into the ego self. It makes us feel like more I and alone and trapped, blocked, shut off, and shunted. And when I think about alcohol in those terms, it's easier for me to leave it alone when I choose to. It's much easier for me to pull back when I think of it in those terms. Like even like we can say that alcohol is really bad for us in so many ways, but you have to pick like in which way do you feel better removing alcohol or staying away from it or creating space and distance between it and yourself. Which one feels really important to you? For some people, it's like recognizing that alcohol makes them feel bloated and fat and tired, right? So if that's a priority for you to not feel that way, focus on it like that. Like, okay, when I remove alcohol, I really feel like slimmer and lighter and like better in my body. You can think of it if you have more concern about your emotional health. Like, okay, when I remove alcohol, like I really notice my anxiety is lower. I feel less depressed because alcohol is a depressant. I feel more like varied in my emotions. Like I have more of an emotional life. Or you might be able to notice that you're much more capable of being self-regulating. You're not as triggered, you're not as angry, you're not as irritated. And for me, like I'm really finding a lot of interest in the spiritual side of things and the energetic side of things, and that how when I do engage with alcohol, how it makes me feel small and distant from that type of um, lifestyle, right? Like even my meditations, if I drink even a beer, I'll notice the next day, like I have to kind of get back to where I was before. I feel much more distant from the way that I've cultivated feeling connected to myself. So pick what feels important to you. Just to, if you are doing a dry or a dryish January, pick the what feels really good to you, as opposed to just moving through the day trying to avoid alcohol. What might not drinking today, what might not drinking just for today and taking it like kind of one day at a time, what might that give you back? What would feel really good about not drinking today? What would feel really good about that? And just to be curious and like leave these possibilities in front of you and around you to explore. It's not that you have to check the day off and like go to bed sweating and like I did it. And like sometimes people do have to do that. People do that, especially people who are fighting to stay sober. If you're in this kind of different boat though, where you're exploring your relationship with alcohol and how you can drink less and how you can make that easier on yourself, I hope this episode gave you some insight on how you can more easily do that. Um, if you haven't heard in my other episodes or on my social media, I've created an app membership space where I offer movement, where I offer meditation and hypnosis specifically designed to help train your brain and your mind into releasing alcohol in a really gentle way that doesn't feel like resistance, right? Because we're like, what we resist will persist. but what feels good and how can you find pleasure actually and joy and fun in creating a space around yourself and within yourself where it's like, I'm actually interested in not drinking to see what else I can find and to see what else I can create. That's more my take on things. My app and my membership is called SALUD, which is like a reclaiming of clinging your alcoholic drinks together and saying SALUD because that's not really true health, but really true health is already in you. And when you remove the things that are blocking it and the things that are in the way, health regains and health rebalances. To me, that's really salud. Salud means health in Spanish, as we know. So that's what it's all about, my friend. Thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for being kind to yourself. Thank you for creating spaciousness to find your own growth edges. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being on the planet at this time. I know it's not always easy being a human being. In this day and age, it's insanity. So, what can we do to create peace within ourselves? And I believe so much in your ability to be on a healing path and to be on a path that feels like enlightenment and spiritual connection because we are born with that. We all have it. And in the course of our lifetimes, we encounter obstacles and blockages and traumas that have put things in our way. So, for me, my belief that healing is really about lifting those things and releasing, and that you don't really need to add or like gain or gather anything. Like, you already are all that you need. You already are everything. You already are whole. It's just about clearing up these things that are blocking you from really experiencing that sense of fullness and lightness and divinity that is so inherent and already within you. Sending you so much love and peace today. I hope that you can find something warm to hold in your hands, like a cup of hot cacao. And bless you, and I'll see you soon.